Before we begin, where are you watching from? Tell us in the comments. Your presence here keeps this story alive and helps it reach more hearts. And to continue this chapter, let's remember where Ariana's story left off. She met Luca on an ordinary day, and something inside her recognized him before she even knew his name. Their connection grew softly, gently, almost like a memory coming back to life. But the deeper her feelings became, the more shadows she noticed behind Luca's eyes, shadows he never spoke about. And everything changed the moment Ariana mentioned his name at home. Her parents froze, fear rising in their faces faster than any explanation. They warned her to stay away from him, without telling her why. The warmth of a new love collided with the coldness of an old secret. And Ariana, torn between heart and family, realized she was standing at the edge of a truth she had never been allowed to know. Now, in this next chapter, she will discover that the past wasn't just close. It was already inside her life, shaping every step she took. Let's go. In the days that followed her family's strange reaction, Ariana noticed a subtle but undeniable shift in Luca. He didn't disappear or pull away abruptly. Instead, he moved with a caution she had never seen in him before. His messages became slightly shorter, his pauses a little longer, as if weighing each word before sending it. When they met, his smile remained soft, but his eyes held a distance she couldn't ignore. Ariana sensed he was trying to protect something, or someone, maybe her, maybe himself. The air between them thickened with unspoken truths. She tried to convince herself it was only her imagination, a trick of fear planted by her parents, but deep inside she felt something slipping through her fingers, something she didn't yet understand. They walked together one afternoon, a path they had taken many times before, yet the silence felt different, heavier. Luca looked ahead more than he looked at her, as if watching for something that wasn't there. When he did meet her eyes, Ariana noticed a softness mixed with hesitation, as though he were holding back words that trembled at the edge of his breath. She tried asking about his week, his family, anything that might ease the tension, but each answer was brief and careful. It was the carefulness that unsettled her most. Luca had never been careful with her. He had been open, steady, present, and now he felt like someone standing just a step outside of himself. The more he tried to mask it, the more obvious it became. Ariana could feel her chest tightening with a fear she didn't know how to name. Was he losing interest? Had she done something wrong? Or was this change connected to the secret her family refused to share? She replayed their last conversations in her mind, searching for cracks she might have missed. Luca still treated her with tenderness, but tenderness wrapped in distance feels like a goodbye learning to speak. She tried walking closer to him, hoping the space would shrink on its own. It didn't. Luca kept a polite half-step between them, as if crossing that invisible line would open a door he wasn't ready to face. Ariana felt the coldness rising quietly inside her. She finally asked him, in a gentle voice, if something was wrong. Not demanding, not doubting, just a woman trying to understand the man standing before her. Luca froze for a moment, long enough for the silence to throb between them. Then he smiled, the kind of smile meant to reassure, but failing to reach the eyes. "Everything's fine," he said softly, but his voice carried a tremor that betrayed him. Ariana felt a chill crawl up her spine, because lies spoken gently are still lies. Something in his posture told her the past she didn't know was already touching them both. And if she had pressed him harder in that moment, the truth might have broken free long before it shattered her. Instead, Ariana decided to give him space, hoping it would draw him closer rather than push him further away. She reminded herself that everyone carries hidden battles, and maybe Luca was fighting one he hadn't learned to share yet. Still, each step they took felt heavier than the last. She noticed the way his shoulders tensed when she mentioned her family, the way his gaze flickered with something like fear before he quickly masked it. Ariana tried laughing to lighten the mood, but the sound fell strangely between them, too bright for the shadows quietly growing. Love is fragile in its beginnings, and she feared theirs was being touched by something they couldn't name. That night, alone in her room, Ariana replayed the afternoon in her mind, searching for meaning in moments that felt ordinary but weren't. She saw Luca pulling away even when his feet stayed close. She saw silence pressing into the spaces where comfort used to live. She remembered the trembling in his voice, the flicker in his eyes, and for the first time, she wondered if their stories had collided long before they ever met. The thought unsettled her. She tried pushing it away, but the unease only deepened. Something inside her whispered that whatever he was running from, it had everything to do with her. Ariana considered calling him, asking him again, offering him the comfort she knew he once found in her presence. But another part of her, the part shaped by disappointment and aching patterns, held her back. She didn't want to chase him if he wasn't ready to stay. She wanted truth, not distance disguised as protection. Still, she couldn't deny the longing that wrapped around her ribs like a slow-growing vine. Luca had opened a door inside her she didn't know existed, and now she feared watching him walk back through it alone. Love has strange timing. It reveals itself most painfully when uncertainty arrives. As she finally lay down, the quiet of her room felt louder than usual, filled with questions she couldn't silence. She wondered where Luca was, what he was thinking, and whether he felt the same ache she carried now. She sensed that he cared, deeply, but something stronger than affection held him back. Ariana didn't yet know that Luca's heart was wrestling with a truth powerful enough to destroy them both. She only knew that the man who made her feel safe was beginning to look over his shoulder, and the past, patient and persistent, was already stepping closer to them both. Because sometimes distance isn't created by the person in front of you, but by the ghosts standing behind them. Tell me in the comments, have you ever felt something was wrong, even when no one said it out loud? Your stories help this community grow. In the days after Luca's sudden quietness, Ariana found herself replaying every moment they had shared, searching for meaning in places she once overlooked. Small fragments began resurfacing in her memory. A pause here, a tight breath there, a glance that lingered too long at the mention of her family. Each detail felt insignificant on its own, but together they formed a pattern she could no longer ignore. She sensed a hidden thread connecting their lives, something older and heavier than the affection still blossoming between them. Ariana tried to calm her thoughts, but intuition has a way of rising louder than logic, and her intuition whispered that Luca's silence wasn't about losing interest. It was about fear. She began noticing parallels she had previously dismissed. Her parents' panic when she said Luca's name. Luca's shift in behavior right after that dinner. The way he winced, almost imperceptibly, whenever she mentioned her father. These moments felt like tiny pieces of a puzzle she hadn't realized she was building. Ariana tried brushing it off as coincidence, but coincidence doesn't tighten your chest or leave you staring at the ceiling with unanswered questions. She walked through her days with a quiet storm brewing beneath her ribs, unsure of what to do with the growing suspicion that her life was touching a story she never knew existed. Something inside her urged her to keep digging. The more she tried to stay present, the more the past intruded. Memories of her childhood home flashed through her mind. Closed doors, whispered arguments, late-night tension she didn't understand back then. Ariana wondered if those old shadows had something to do with Luca, or if she was simply projecting her fears onto him. Still, every time she tried to push the thought away, something tugged at her consciousness, demanding attention. She watched people more carefully, noticing the way they reacted to the mention of certain surnames, certain stories. The world suddenly seemed full of clues she had been too naive or too trusting to see before. And now she couldn't unsee them. Determined to uncover something, anything, Ariana decided to start with the one place she rarely explored, her father's old office. It was a room filled with achievements, framed certificates, polished awards, and silence. The kind of silence that feels curated, chosen, deliberate. She opened drawers gently, feeling a strange mix of curiosity and guilt. Inside, she found documents she didn't fully understand, names she didn't recognize, and dates that coincided with her teenage years. The same period her family had entered a strange season of tension. Her pulse quickened as she picked up an old newspaper clipping. A name jumped out at her, not Luca's, but close enough to make her breath catch. And in that moment, she realized she wasn't imagining the connection. The truth had been waiting for her all along. Ariana sat on the floor with the documents spread before her, each page carrying a weight she wasn't ready to hold. She felt her palms grow damp as she traced the edges of an article describing an old dispute involving her father and another man whose last name mirrored Luca's family history. The article mentioned injustice, accusations, and consequences her father had never spoken about. Ariana felt her world tilt. It wasn't proof, not yet, but it was enough to confirm that something dark lingered beneath the surface of her family's past. The realization settled in her stomach like a slow-burning flame. As she read further, she noticed more fragments pointing to a conflict that had cost someone far more than a job or reputation. The tone of the writing, the comments recorded, the bitterness etched into the words. It all felt painfully personal. Ariana's throat tightened as she imagined the possibility that Luca had grown up inside the shadow of this devastation. She wondered what that would mean for him, for her, for them both. And suddenly, all the tenderness she had seen in him carried a deeper meaning. Kindness that comes from pain has a different shape. It softens differently. It loves differently. She gathered the papers with trembling hands, unsure whether to hide them away or confront the truth head-on. Her heart raced with a mix of fear and determination. Part of her wanted to run to Luca, to demand answers, to bridge the growing distance between them with honesty. But another part understood that some truths require preparation, not reaction. She needed clarity, not confrontation. She needed understanding, not accusation. Ariana knew she was standing at the edge of a story big enough to reshape her entire life, and she had to decide whether she was ready to step into it. As the evening light dimmed, Ariana sat in the quiet room, surrounded by shadows and the first clues of a past that had been hidden from her. She felt both terrified and strangely empowered. The puzzle pieces were still scattered, but she knew she was closer to the truth than ever before. She could feel it breathing at the back of her mind, waiting to be named. And she sensed that Luca's distance wasn't a rejection. It was protection from a truth that had been growing roots long before they ever met. Because some stories don't begin the day two people meet. They begin in the wounds their families left behind. Before we go deeper, if this story is touching something inside you, remember to subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your support helps this channel keep telling stories that speak to the heart. Ariana hesitated at the doorway of the living room, watching her father sit in his familiar armchair, the evening news murmuring softly in the background. He looked older than she remembered, not in years, but in the way his shoulders curved inward, as if carrying a weight he'd never put down. For a long moment, she simply observed him, wondering how much of his story she actually knew. The man who had always seemed so certain, so firm, now appeared smaller in the dim light. Her heart pounded as she realized that, for the first time, she wasn't approaching him as a daughter seeking permission, but as a woman seeking the truth. She sat down across from him, the air thick with everything unspoken between them. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice was steadier than she expected when she finally spoke his name. He looked up, and for a moment, their eyes met with a familiarity that almost disarmed her. Almost. Ariana reached for the stack of papers she had brought from his office, placing them gently on the table between them like evidence in a trial neither of them had agreed to attend. "I found this," she said softly. The room seemed to inhale and hold its breath. Her father's gaze dropped to the documents, and Ariana watched the color drain slowly from his face. He didn't ask what they were. He already knew. His fingers twitched, as if deciding whether to reach for the pages or push them away. After a long silence, he leaned back and closed his eyes, a pained expression crossing his features. Ariana saw, for the first time, not the authority of a parent, but the vulnerability of a man who had run from his own past. She realized this wasn't a conversation he had avoided. It was one he was terrified of having. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower, stripped of the certainty she had always associated with him. He admitted there had been a situation, a conflict from years ago involving a colleague, accusations, and consequences that spiraled out of control. He tried to frame it as a misunderstanding, a professional dispute gone wrong. But the more he talked, the clearer it became. that this wasn't just about work. Lives had been affected, a family had been affected, and somewhere in the middle of it all was a name that echoed through Luca's history. And in that instant, Ariana felt the ground beneath her begin to tilt, because the story he told sounded far too close to the life of the man she loved. Her father spoke in fragments, carefully choosing words that softened the edges of his responsibility. He explained how he had been under pressure, how decisions had been rushed, how he had convinced himself that what he did was necessary. Ariana listened, but each sentence felt like a stone sinking deeper into her chest. She wanted to believe him, to see him as a man who made a mistake rather than someone who destroyed another life. Yet behind every justification, she heard a quiet echo of something he wasn't saying. The part where his choices had consequences he never had to live with, but someone else did. When she asked about the other man, her father's expression hardened with a mixture of regret and defensiveness. He mentioned a surname that made her pulse quicken, one she had seen in the article from the office, a surname dangerously close to Luca's. The details were vague, but the outline was clear enough. A lost job, a ruined reputation, a family thrown into financial and emotional turmoil. Ariana imagined a young boy watching his world fall apart, learning early that life could be cruel and unfair. That boy could have been anyone, but she suspected he wasn't just anyone. He was Luca. Tears stung her eyes, not only for Luca, but for the realization that the man she grew up admiring had played a part in creating another person's pain. She struggled to hold both truths at once. Her father as the provider who had given her comfort and stability, and her father as the source of someone else's suffering. Her chest felt tight with conflicting loyalties. Was she allowed to love him and still hold him accountable? Was she allowed to choose her own heart when the past insisted on standing in the middle? As the conversation ended, her father looked at her with a plea she wasn't ready to meet. A plea for understanding, maybe forgiveness, without having fully confessed the depth of what he'd done. Ariana left the room with the documents still in her hands, the weight of them now heavier than ever. She walked back to her room in silence, feeling as though she had stepped out of a life built on half-truths. She didn't know exactly how Luca fit into this story yet, but she knew one thing for certain. Whatever he had been carrying, he had every reason to keep his distance. Because sometimes the hardest truth isn't about what someone did to you. It's realizing what the people you love may have done to someone else. Ariana felt an ache in her chest the moment she saw Luca waiting for her near the old bridge where they often met. He stood with his hands in his pockets, shoulders slightly hunched, as if bracing himself against something heavier than the wind. She approached slowly, sensing the tension radiating from him like a silent warning. When he finally looked at her, his eyes carried a tenderness wrapped in sorrow, a contradiction she had seen growing inside him for weeks. Ariana's heart tightened. She knew he wanted to speak. She also knew she wasn't ready for what he might say. But some truths demand to be heard, even when the heart trembles at the thought. They walked to a quieter spot by the river, where the water moved with a rhythm that felt painfully calm compared to the storm inside her. Luca took a deep breath, the kind of breath someone takes before stepping into a memory that still hurts to touch. He told her he hadn't been honest, not because he didn't care, but because he cared too much. Ariana listened without interrupting, even though each word felt like a thread tightening around her ribs. Luca explained that his past wasn't something he shared easily, not because he was ashamed of himself, but because it involved pain he spent years trying to bury, pain that shaped him, pain he didn't want to spill into her life. He spoke about his childhood, about the instability his family faced, about the nights when silence felt like a punishment and hope was a luxury they couldn't afford. Ariana watched the way his voice wavered as he described the day everything collapsed, the day his father came home defeated, broken, carrying the weight of a decision someone else had made. Luca didn't mention names, but the outline of the story matched too closely the one Ariana had just learned. She felt her heart sinking even before he finished speaking. Luca talked about consequences that echoed for years, consequences that shaped the man he had become. Then he admitted something that made Ariana's breath hitch. He had recognized her last name the very first day they met. He didn't say how he felt about it, only that he didn't walk away. Something about her presence had disarmed him, he said. Something about her kindness made him want to understand instead of blame. Ariana felt a tear slip down her cheek. not from betrayal, but from the weight of the connection neither of them chose. She waited for him to continue, hoping he would reveal everything, but Luca's silence stretched, thick with the truth he wasn't ready to speak, and Ariana understood, with a painful clarity, that he had told her only half of the story. She wanted to ask him what he wasn't saying, what still hid behind the trembling softness of his voice. But Luca looked away, toward the water, as if searching for the courage he had run out of. He told her he never intended to get close, that his heart had moved before his logic could stop it. Ariana felt torn between compassion and fear, unsure whether to reach for him or protect herself. Loving someone who carries scars is one thing. Loving someone whose scars bleed into your own history is another. Still, she didn't step back. She couldn't. Luca continued speaking, but the details grew vague, as if he were carefully choosing which truths were safe to share. He admitted that he had been distant because he feared hurting her, feared repeating a cycle he spent his life trying to escape. Ariana sensed sincerity in every word, yet behind that sincerity was a shadow she couldn't ignore. He spoke of forgiveness, of understanding, of wanting to be better than the past he inherited, but he never said the one thing she needed to hear: how her family fit into his story, and the absence of that truth felt louder than any confession. Ariana looked at him, trying to see the man she cared for instead of the story that threatened to unravel everything between them. Luca held her gaze with a desperation she hadn't seen before, as if silently pleading not to lose her. She felt her heart breaking in two directions, one half reaching for him, the other recoiling from the truth he refused to speak. Love, she realized, isn't just about connection, it's about courage. And Luca wasn't ready to offer his fully. Not yet. Ariana breathed deeply, steadying herself against the weight of his partial confession. When they parted, the space between them felt heavier than any argument could have made it. Ariana walked away with the echo of his unfinished story lingering in her mind, mixing with the document still hidden in her drawer. She understood now that Luca wasn't lying. He was protecting something, or someone, but protecting isn't the same as healing, and silence can wound as deeply as betrayal. As she reached the end of the bridge, she realized she stood at the edge of a truth powerful enough to shatter or save them both. And the next step she took would decide which path their story followed. Because sometimes the truth doesn't break you. It prepares you for the moment when everything finally comes undone. Ariana returned home that night with her mind spinning, each step feeling heavier than the last. Luca's half-confession replayed in her thoughts like a broken melody she couldn't silence. He had spoken truths wrapped in softness, but softness couldn't hide the missing pieces she desperately needed. She felt the weight of two worlds pressing against her. The world she had always known and the world that was now unraveling before her eyes. It frightened her how quickly trust could turn into doubt, even when affection still lingered. She wondered how long he had carried the burden of their intertwined histories. She wondered why he hadn't trusted her enough to share it. She wondered if love could survive the silence that now lived between them. Most of all, she wondered who Luca truly was when she wasn't looking. She sat at the edge of her bed, staring at the documents she had hidden beneath a blanket. The same documents her father feared she'd ever find. Every word she read weighed more heavily now that Luca's voice echoed behind them. It was as if truth had begun pressing against the seams of her life, demanding to be acknowledged. Ariana felt a strange ache spreading through her chest, a mixture of grief and awakening. She didn't want to see Luca through the lens of the past, but the past refused to stay quiet. She ran her fingers over the faded ink, feeling something inside her crack. Maybe she had been naive. Maybe she had fallen too quickly. Maybe the person she trusted most had stepped into her life carrying reasons she never imagined. Her thoughts spiraled in every direction, each one colliding with another, until she could no longer tell fear from intuition. She remembered the tenderness in Luca's eyes, the way he listened, the way he softened around her, and she questioned whether any of it had been real. Had he come into her life out of genuine connection, or out of curiosity shaped by pain? Ariana's breath trembled as she wondered whether she had been chosen for who she was, or for who her father had been. The possibility felt like betrayal, even if unintended. She wished Luca had told her everything. She wished he had trusted her with the truth. She wished the past didn't feel so close to her skin. She wished love didn't hurt in ways she couldn't name. As she lay back on her pillow, the ceiling above her blurred through the tears she refused to let fall. She felt trapped between logic and longing, torn between the man she cared for and the history that threatened to redefine him. Something inside her whispered that the pieces didn't add up, that Luca's story still held an ache deeper than anything he had shared. She turned to the side, curling into herself as the quiet room pressed against her heart. She didn't know if she feared losing him or feared discovering who he had been before her. The darkness offered no comfort, only reflection. And reflection can be cruel when trust begins to crack. And in that fragile silence, Ariana realized she wasn't just questioning Luca. She was questioning everything she believed about herself. The next morning, Ariana felt a stiffness in her chest, a reminder of the emotional storm she had carried through the night. She moved through the house with slow, deliberate steps, as if afraid that any sudden motion would cause the truth to spill out of her. She tried focusing on ordinary tasks, but ordinary no longer existed when the foundation of her world was shifting. Every memory of Luca felt different now, colored by uncertainty she couldn't escape. She replayed their laughter, their conversations, the warmth she felt when he looked at her, and wondered if any of it had been untouched by the past. The doubt tasted bitter, unfamiliar, and heavy. Ariana felt her heart tighten with a helpless ache. She walked outside and let the cold air brush against her face, hoping it would steady her breathing. Instead, it made her more aware of the hollow feeling spreading inside. Questions repeated in her mind like echoes trapped in a narrow hallway. If Luca had recognized her last name immediately, why hadn't he said anything? If he had known about the past from the beginning, what had kept him close to her? And why had he chosen silence instead of truth? The weight of these questions pressed against her until she felt her knees weaken. Trust, she realized, doesn't break with anger. It breaks with uncertainty. And uncertainty now stood at the center of her relationship. Ariana's thoughts drifted back to her father, to the man who had shaped her understanding of right and wrong. She felt a pang of guilt, wondering whether she was betraying him by caring for someone connected to his past mistakes. But then she remembered the tenderness in Luca's eyes and felt torn all over again. Love shouldn't have to choose sides. Yet here she was, standing between two histories that had collided long before she was born. She wrapped her arms around herself, feeling the weight of their stories pressing onto her shoulders. She didn't know which truth to hold or which love to trust. All she knew was that her heart felt fragile in a way she hadn't expected. As she finally returned inside, Ariana realized she was no longer searching for answers. She was searching for clarity. She couldn't move forward until she understood the full story. Her heart ached, but beneath the ache lived determination. She wouldn't let half-truths shape her life. She wouldn't let silence decide the fate of her heart. She would face whatever waited in the shadows, even if it hurt, because love didn't deserve to live in uncertainty, and neither did she. Ariana took a deep breath, steadying herself. She knew the moment of truth was coming, and she was finally ready to hear it, because questioning someone else isn't the hardest part. The hardest part is facing what their truth might reveal about you. Before we continue, if this story is touching you in any way, remember to subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to feel less alone. Your support helps this channel keep bringing stories that speak to the heart. Ariana knew that half-truths had a way of disguising themselves as protection. She could no longer live comfortably inside what other people chose not to tell her. One afternoon, with her heart pounding but her mind clear, she decided to search beyond her father's version of events. She went back to the documents she had found, this time reading them not as a daughter, but as a woman seeking justice. The names, dates, and headlines began to form a map she could follow. Every line she traced with her eyes felt like walking deeper into a story she never consented to inherit. She found references to hearings, complaints, and witnesses. She noticed that the consequences described for the other family were far worse than her father had admitted. It wasn't just a dispute. It was a fracture that had changed the course of someone's life forever. The more she read, the more she felt a cold realization spreading through her chest. Her father hadn't simply made a hard decision under pressure. He had chosen a path that protected his own success while letting someone else carry the fallout. One name repeated more than once in the reports, linked to anger, loss, and a sense of betrayal. That surname matched the one she had seen tied to Luca's family history. The coincidence felt too precise to ignore. It was as if the past had been standing beside her all along, waiting for her to turn her head. Ariana pressed her hand against her mouth as the truth grew heavier inside her. She no longer doubted that Luca's life had been shaped by what her father had done. What she didn't know yet was how deep those wounds truly went. Needing more than paper, Ariana searched online records, old articles, and any trace of what had happened. She found interviews with people who had known the man affected by her father's decision. They spoke of a dedicated worker whose life unraveled after losing everything he had built. There were hints of depression, financial collapse, and a family left picking up fragmented pieces. She imagined a young boy watching all of this, learning early that the world could be cruel and unpredictable. She imagined that boy growing up with grief disguised as anger and responsibility disguised as silence. It hurt to admit that this story might belong to the man she loved. It hurt even more to realize that her family's security may have been built on someone else's ruin. The image of Luca's quiet eyes made her chest ache in a new way. Love now felt tangled in something much bigger than either of them. Still, Ariana needed one more piece of confirmation, something that connected the dots undeniably. She searched for the man's obituary and felt her breath catch when she saw the list of surviving relatives. Among the names, there it was, Luca's surname, printed clearly, impossible to ignore. Her heart pounded as the letters blurred through tears she could no longer hold back. The past was no longer an abstract story or a distant possibility. It was Luca's reality. It was the ground he had walked on long before she met him, and it was tied directly to choices her father had made without ever looking back. Ariana felt the room spin as the truth settled into place like a painful puzzle finally completed. This was the truth she had not been meant to find, but could no longer avoid. And in that moment, she understood that nothing between them had been accidental. Not their meeting, not his distance, not her family's fear. She closed her eyes, letting the quiet surround her as she tried to absorb everything she had learned. How could she stand between two worlds so tightly bound by pain and still choose a path that didn't destroy her? Part of her wanted to run from it all, to pretend she had never read those lines or connected those names. But another part knew that pretending would only keep her trapped in a life built on denial. She thought of Luca, of the way he had looked at her when he confessed only half of his story. She wondered how many times he had almost told her the full truth and held it back. Not because he wanted to deceive her, but because he knew the weight it carried. Ariana felt a deep, aching compassion rise inside her, mingled with a quiet heartbreak. He hadn't just been afraid of the past. He had been afraid of what the past would do to her. Ariana stood up and walked to the window, watching people move through the streets without knowing the histories they crossed. She realized that, to the outside world, she was just another woman living an ordinary life. No one could see the storm she was carrying inside. No one could see the invisible line stretching between her family and Luca's. She wondered how many lives were built on stories never fully told. How many hearts had learned to love while standing over buried truths. For the first time, she didn't see her relationship with Luca as something fragile or naive. She saw it as something incredibly brave, simply for existing in the middle of so much inherited pain. Maybe that was why it felt so intense. Maybe that was why it hurt so deeply now. She knew she couldn't confront Luca with anger, not when she had just discovered the depth of what he had lived. But she also knew she couldn't continue as if nothing had changed. The truth had altered everything, even if her feelings for him were still the same. She needed to talk to him, not just as the woman who loved him, but as the daughter of the man who had caused his family so much harm. It terrified her to imagine that conversation, to think of the look in his eyes when he realized what she knew. Would he finally tell her everything? Would he shut down to protect himself once again? Or would the weight they both carried finally have a chance to be put down? Ariana felt a quiet resolve form inside her. She knew there was no way back from this moment. As she folded the documents and placed them in her bag, Ariana understood that the next time she saw Luca, nothing would be the same. Their story was no longer just about affection, comfort, and soft laughter. It was about two lives shaped by a decision made long ago. one that neither of them had chosen. She felt afraid, but beneath her fear, a small flame of courage flickered. She couldn't rewrite the past, but she could decide what to do with the truth now that it was fully in her hands. Her heart beat faster as she imagined looking into Luca's eyes and naming what had always been there between them: pain, history, and still, something that looked a lot like love, because the truth she was never meant to find had finally found her. And now, it would decide whether their story ended or finally began.